And we're back to FreeCodeCamp. On this time, I'm going to solve the drum machine certification project. I kicked this can down the road, to be honest. I wasn't really interested in it, but I think I found an easy solution, and I also hope that I've covered the entire user story this time using the correct ID names and stuff. You can use the audio files right here given, so we can directly use the links as sources, and here's an example. We're not going to fully recreate it. I'm going to leave it up to you to style it. I think that the harder part is here to actually make it work. Let us dive right in CodePen. You can find this code, it's public. I'm going to link to it in the video description. At first we need an overall container for the drum machine. I've added a switch for on and off. And then we need the drum pads, which are going to be all of the buttons for the given letters. It needs to be in the correct order to fulfill the user story, so be careful here. Right there, it's user story number 3, and you need to give it a drum minus pad class name. We did that. Now let's take care of the audio files. There have to be as many as buttons, obviously, so that everyone has a different sound. Format is always the same. Add a class clip, then I've used as an ID the corresponding button name, so for all of the letters, and then you can copy the link address, for example here header 1, paste it as a source, and now this connected to our Q button, at least here in HTML. To actually make it sound when we click on it, we need JavaScript, but you need to do this for all audio buttons and all audio files. I've prepared it, so I copy paste it here. In principle, you only have to update the ID and the source for each audio, but the rest is the same. This is all part here of the div drum minus pads. Then I've created another div for the display. This is also needed to fulfill the user story. So when you click on a button, the display should pop up and show the name of the sound. I'm not so sure if a volume slider was required to pass the user story or to pass the test on FreeCodeCamp, but I've added one as the example had one. I've simply used an input of type range for it and added a label. So this is our volume slider. By default, I want it to be at the max, which I've set to 1. And this is already it for the HTML part. CSS, as I've said, I'm going to keep it simple. I'll leave it up to you to style it further if you want to and use maybe Bootstrap or something. I believe that you can just edit in CodePen. I'm going to try it in the end. So let me make a note so that I don't forget. On here, I'll just use the classes, IDs to style our stuff a little bit. The toggle button right here for on and off. It can't be directly used. I'm going to use JavaScript for that. But still we'll use the transition and transform right here in CSS to have kind of like an animation. And this should be enough for the basic CSS. Now we'll move on to JavaScript. At first, we will define the variables that we need and then get elements by ID or by class. For example, the power button, we've given it an ID of power minus button. The drum pads though, they have a class of drum minus pad, so we'll use a query selector here. Then we need a variable for our audio clips. Again, query selector, as it goes through all of these audio clips, just like with the drum pads. The display we can get by ID again. It's just one element with an ID of display. We also have the volume slider. It has volume minus slider as an ID, and also add a power on set to true. So in the beginning we want our drum machine to be turned on. And I'm getting a warning message here by CodePen. Let me check that. Well, we haven't yet defined the toggle power, so it doesn't work yet. But I hope that I haven't made any typos up until now. But it seems like I haven't. So let us ignore the toggle power until we've reached that function. Let's take care of the volume slider first. We'll add an event listener for input. And then set the volume to volume slider.value. So we'll drag it, and there's going to be the value between 0 and 1, which is min and max. And this will then adjust our audio volume. Now let's go through our pads, and I've used a for loop for it. I equals 0, and it needs to be smaller than drumpads.length. So in case we might want to add some, but for this tutorial it's just 9 for the length, so you could also just write smaller than 9. I++, so for each iteration it's going to be incremented by 1. So it goes to the next drum pad. We want to have it as a click event, so when we click on it, the specific drum pad should be played. Power on is set to true by default right here, so if it is still true, we're going to play the audio with the index position I. which is connected to the specific drum pad with the same index I. But this is just for clicking. We also want to have the option to click or to press the button on the keyword. For example, for audio file at index 0, the first one, we want to have the option to click on Q. So we use key down here. For our keys, we'll set everything to uppercase. And we'll use our drum pads array, spread it out. Find the specific index for it. And inside it's called drum pad. This is the ID that we've used. So drumpad.id, and this should be equal to our key. As mentioned, we've set it to uppercase, and you can see that we've used in the HTML upper keys as IDs. And here again, power needs to be on for it to work, and it also needs to find the specific key, and if we can't find it, the value would be -1, so index can't be -1, and then we can let the specific audio play for the index. So for example, Q would be index 0, and this would play then. Let us move on. We actually need to define the function play audio, and this uses the index for audio clips and set the current time to 0 so that it is reset in the beginning. These clips are pretty short, but still you want to always have it reset. We also want to set the volume to the volume that we've adjusted or set with our volume slider. And finally, we want to have it play. And don't let me forget the display. Whenever we click, for example on Q, it should show the audio clip, which will be text content. And here we'll use a couple of these JavaScript methods. For example, we split it first, it's a URL, so we can use the slash here. And then we'll pop it to get the last element after the slash. And I've also added a replace to get rid of .mp3. We don't want to have that shown, and we'll just leave it empty. Just to explain it a little bit further, let me just copy paste a URL right here. You can see that a couple of slashes, and when we split it, each element will be put in a specific position inside of an array. So you could see it like this. There are always these white spaces now. And we have header -1.mp3 as a single element. We'll isolate that using pop. And then we use replace to get rid of .mp3. And we want to replace it with nothing. So we'll just add these quotation marks. And now we have header -1. And we could also replace the minus with a white space maybe. So this is what will be shown in the display. Can move on to the next function. We need the set volume. As I've said, this is what we have earlier set with our slider input. And now finally we'll take care of the toggle power. And I hope that our warning message will vanish, or I've done a typo here somewhere. Here it is used, so toggle power is the function. We'll set power on to exclamation mark power on. So whatever it is, we're going to inverse it. Let me check here. This was our HTML element right here. Class of switch and then class of slider inside. This is what we need. So dot slider right here for the class selector. And then we'll use the toggle for our slider and inverse it with power on. And then we'll toggle it right here. Still doesn't work, and there's a warning message. Let me check. So I made a typo right here. Sorry, it's obviously power on, not power 1. Let me correct that, and hopefully now it works. And it does. So not too many typos this time. This works, so here's our display. You can't really hear it as I haven't connected my CPU to my audio, but it runs. If you go to my code pen, you're going to find out yourself. Just click on the buttons and they work. Let me check this one, header for _1. So maybe I want to replace underscore. Here's another one, but it doesn't look that bad. It looks worse when I have it like 4 and then white space 1. So let me just leave it in. I'll keep the underscore, that's okay. So the drum machine is set up. I hope this video was helpful. If there are any problems with my code pen, let me know. But I wanted to also show you the bootstrap part. I haven't done that before in CodePen, so let me check. I should be able to add that somewhere in the settings. Maybe here in the HTML path, so that I can post it in the head. Or directly in CSS. And right here we can add external style sheets. Let me try. I'll just type in bootstrap. . and it finds the latest version. I'll save it. And now let me add, just to test it, a class, a typical Bootstrap class, maybe to our drum machine, like a background class, bg-info. And let's see if it gives us a background color. And it actually works. So you can add Bootstrap like this if you want to and style it further. But this is a general way to set up the drum machine. Again, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.